Thank you for inviting me for this friendly talk. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to see people from all over the world. That's super exciting. Um, the topic that I'm going to be speaking on tonight is essentially developing the gaits and the paces of the horse. And in particular, where we are focusing on training level and first level for the American tests. And this is really, we look at this as the foundational level. This is where the horse is learning his basic ABCs in his riding development. So it's very, very important level. And
Sarah,
yeah,
Sarah, if you allow me, just a brief second.
sure.
For those of you that are from outside the US and Canada, and I'm very happy to see that we have many new countries now, like New Zealand and Australia and Japan. Sarah first of all, is a very good friend of mine, and she's a wonderful judge with a lot of experience judging in the US and Canada and many countries around the world. And she's a 4-star FEI judge, and she's also a very good clinician. So, Sarah, thanks a lot for accepting this invitation. I'm
Oh, my pleasure.
delighted to have you here, and I really like the topic that you choose for this talk. So,
Well, it's one of my passions, I'm speaking tonight from my judging background, but also my riding and teaching and training background too. So
great.
please, everybody, keep that in mind. We're not like looking at score. We are going to be watching some horses, but we're watching them with the idea of the gaits and really assessing them. So I feel that the training and first level and this foundational work is so, so, so important in the development of the horse, because we're really setting the stage for his whole future as a dressage horse or whatever his ultimate career will be. This is the foundation. So I really like to think that at this level, we have two initial goals. Our first one is to be able to begin the development of the horse's paces, the walk, the trot, the canter. And I mean, really, what are we looking for? We're looking for, in terms of the gaits, that they're pure, all right, that they have the proper rhythm for the walk, 4-beat, no suspension, trot, 2-beat with suspension, canter, 3-beat with suspension. So we're looking to see that the gaits are pure. We want the horse to be relaxed. We want him to be regular. He does, at the beginning level, he needs energy. Energy that starts with his hind legs rather than the front end. So that's just basic requirements, basic gaits. Then, in addition, we see that as a training process begins, we hope to start to see that we can enhance the horse's movement so that we develop a little bit of freedom in his shoulder, for example. We develop a little more reach in the hind legs. As he starts to become supple, we develop more elasticity and more scope in his stride. So those are some of the things that I want to be touching on tonight. The other really important, equally important area and goal at this stage is to develop the horse's psyche, the psychological aspect of the horse. We all know that we can never force a horse. Okay, if it's forced in the moment of truth, it's just not going to happen. That's not what riding is about. This is a cooperation. This is a partnership. We're a team. The idea of the harmony that we want to establish between our horse and ourselves, it starts here. So for the horse's psyche, I like to think he needs to be relaxed. He needs to understand from the beginning what the basic riding tools that we have, what they mean, and how he's supposed to respond, so that he can develop a basic level of confidence and an understanding for what his job is going to be. And ideally, we can ride and train in a way where we can create a horse that wants to work with us. It's a partner, rather than we make them do it and you're going to do it now or else. That kind of thinking has no part in riding or training. And I'll tell you, as judges, Cesar will agree with me, you can tell in a heartbeat how a horse has been ridden and trained by watching them for 10 seconds. You can get an idea of what the approach has been. So we want those, the physical and the psychological things we start at the beginning. So I know we have a few judges here and we have some top riders here, which I'm very impressed. But for everybody, we all know we have that universal roadmap that we use in every country, in every place in the world, that really is our guide to help us develop our horse to be the best that he can be. And this is the pyramid of training. Cesar, I don't know if you want to put that up now. Okay, I would like to just talk about this very briefly. I don't want to go into huge detail and bore you all, but it's important. As judges, here it is. As judges, we judge according to the pyramid of training. What you're seeing on the screen, every single score that you see is all reflects what's happening in terms of this training scale, pyramid of training. Excuse me. So for every mark you get, the judge makes a decision. He goes through his mind. How is the rhythm? How is the suppleness? How's the connection? Is there sufficient impulsion? And so on and so on. And we arrive at your one score. As riders, though, and as trainers, and everybody that rides your horse, you're training the horse. So you really are the trainer. It's really important to develop a very good understanding of this, but then to be able to use it in your riding to assess. As you're going along in your riding and you feel something is wrong, something isn't quite right, but you can't kind of put your finger on it. If you can go back and you've trained yourself, the rider's mental training is such that he can assess and think, okay, how is the horse's rhythm? Is it better one way or the other? How is the suppleness? And go through these categories. And there's a very good chance that the rider will be able to determine where the weak link is, and what you need to do to go back and fix the problem, so to speak. So I cannot stress this enough. So just a real quick rehash of this, quick review. And I'm sure you've all are very familiar with this. But our first category is rhythm, all right? The most important at training level and the most important at Grand Prix level. Faults in the rhythm at Grand Prix are taken very seriously. So anyway, rhythm simply is the characteristic sequence of the footfalls. As we said, the walk is a 4-beat gait, trot 2-beat, canter 3-beat. It needs to have sufficient energy so that it covers ground. At this point, we have the idea of tempo, which is the rate of the repetition or speed. And oftentimes at this level, training in first level, rhythm and tempo become a little bit confused. And then we have that other term that is, I think it's universal, is the instructor and the trainer says, you need to ride more forward. Okay, go more forward. So what happens? They go fast. They start running the horse, all right? And think, okay, well, I'm going forward, all right? But that's not it. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit when we get to impulsion. But anyway, you have to figure out a tempo that is going to allow the horse to establish a steady rhythm, to find his balance, and to find relaxation. Rhythm is simply the most important, and it's a beginning thing because from rhythm, the muscles can work the way they're supposed to. So then we have suppleness, okay? Suppleness is really what? It's just a positive tension, muscular tension that the horse has within all of his muscles. And what this does is it allows the joints to move freely, okay, with flexibility, okay? We also think in terms of suppleness that the horse needs to be able to lengthen and stretch his muscles. He needs to be able to shorten and contract them. We have the adductor muscles and the abductor muscles. But at any rate, from a riding standpoint, we think of suppleness is the horse's ability to either, first off, bend left or bend right. And the longitudinal suppleness that's equally important is from hindquarters to the bit, back to front, so that that kind of suppleness, as in making a transition, for instance, allows us to develop the horse longitudinally over his top line muscles, and particularly through his back. So contact, we all know, contact is probably one of the most difficult things to really, truly establish correctly. I think all three of these things in concert are the most important to establish at training and first level. Contact can often be a little bit challenging. And if you break it down into two ideas for contact, you have first the horse accepting the bit. Okay, and what does that mean? Simply means that he's can relax his pole and jaw and allow himself to make a connection with the rider's hands in a way that the rider can use the contact. And this is really important. And what I mean by that is, if you ask the horse for flexion, the horse should understand, oh, I can just soften my jaw and pole and yield, and it makes me more comfortable. All right, so in other words, he's not using his underneck, he's not stiffening, he's not dropping the bit, he's not grabbing it and running away or doing any of those things. He's just kind of there. All right, so contact, all right, really comes from the horse's overall acceptance of all of the aids, the rider's leg, the seat, and the hand. All right, connection is more sophisticated. It involves contact, as we know, but connection, now we're talking about being able to direct the energy from the hind legs through the horse's back and top line to the bit, so that we have that bridge, so to speak. And that bridge over the horse's back is probably one of the most important places that we need to begin to develop at this level. And it continues onward forever. And that bridge through the horse's back and the horse's ability to carry himself on his hindquarters and with his back up will later on is a really important piece to improving the horse's natural paces. Okay, so let me just quickly go through the last ones. We have impulsion. Impulsion, like we said, it's not speed. Speed kills. All right. Going forward is a state of mind in the horse, and it's a state of mind in the rider also, and it's just a direction. So when we think about impulsion, and particularly at these lower levels, we are thinking about developing pushing power with the hind legs, so that the horse is really propelling himself over the ground with his hind legs rather than kind of pulling himself around with his shoulders, which we see that an awful lot at this level. So the feeling that the horse it's like the old-fashioned Volkswagens, the little bugs, that was my first car. And yeah. The engine was in the rear. Well, it's the same with the horse. His engine is in the rear, and that's where his locomotion needs to come from. So, and that takes time and it takes strength. And as the horse becomes stronger and is able to push through equally on both hind legs, he develops the ability to start to use his back now with a relaxed, supple, swinging back. Okay, so then we have straightness. Straightness is forever. We're always improving straightness in the horse. And just like people, we're naturally asymmetrical, crooked. Horse is naturally crooked. Huge part of our training involves over time and years developing the ability for the horse to be straight. Straight is kind of on two levels you can think of it. The first and the simplest one is that the horse's shoulders and hind legs move on the same path. Okay. The second, and the one that takes the years and years and years of training, is that we have gymnasticized the horse correctly over years so that we have developed his musculature to be as even and equal as it can be, so that the horse ultimately at the FEI and at Grand Prix levels, he's able to take the weight equally into both hind legs through all of the exercises, and he can be equal in the contact. Okay. And then lastly, we have collection, which is tied in, of course, to straightness. But really, what is collection? It's just a very high level of balance. I can remember a long time ago, I was judging a big show in Florida with Eric Letta, and I was not an FEI judge then. I was a peon judge. And but you got to judge really super horses down there at training level. And of course, he was on the FEI panel and everything, but we got to hang out with all the FEI judges back then. And I got into this discussion with him about the good horses I was seeing, and we were just chatting back and forth. And he just said this most profound thing. He says, well, training level horses need to have collection. And I said, what? And he goes, yes, for their level and their ability, they need to have an element of collection, because what is collection? It's just balance. Anyway, that was 20 or 25 years ago. That was a huge eye opener for me. I was like, okay, so collection really is a very high level of balance in what we would call nowadays self-carriage, where the horse carries himself. Another phrase I like is the horse is self-going. He goes on his own with the lightest, most invisible aids possible. That's what collection is. But
Sarah,
yes?
may I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
I think
Please.
what you said is very deep and is very important, because I also remember I'm talking 30 years ago.
I know we're dating ourselves.
And once I heard somebody saying, well, that horse completely on the forehand, it has the perfect balance to show him in a training level test. And I said, well, wait a moment, what are we talking about? And actually, this was the idea at that time. I'm sorry, at least here in my country. It took years to get out of that feeling. It's not to have, of course, you don't want to see the horse in the frame of a third level horse or the Grand Prix horse or St. George horse, but it has to start coming from behind. And what you said is I think it's very important, very, very important. And people sometimes neglect that. And if it's completely on the forehand, even if it's for training level, it's not good enough, right?
Correct. Absolutely. You're so right, Cesar. So collection, the horse learns to take more weight on the hindquarters. He learns to engage. Right? He needs to be hindquarters down, which in turn allows the forehand to become lighter. So he shifts his balance more towards the hind end. And it's slight, but it's enough that the horse is able to really show, for example, in a nicely collected horse, you see the joints of the hind legs really bend under the body, not out behind the body. But you see the horse, really sitting and then pushing forward. I think Vallegro was an excellent example of that in her work and in that training. I mean, that horse, I know Stephen Clark always says that Vallegro is probably one of the best examples of a horse that is evenly trained in the collected and in the extended work and in all three paces. He's a very, very good example of that, Vallegro. Okay, so that's basically the training scale, and all the elements work together. They're not individual. We don't just focus on. Oh, where'd everybody go? Oh, you took it away. Okay.
Yeah, I took away the training pyramid. Don't worry, we're
okay. All right. So they all work together, and they all are relative to every single level of training, development of the horse. Training level, first level, second, and all the way up. So, okay, as a rider, the rider learns to have that in your head. It's like you have to memorize it. Like you have to learn to train your brain to focus on those things in all of the different parts of your ride. So, and we know that, and when we're developing our ride each day, we have we have a warm up, we have a working phase, and we have a cool down phase. And the rider's mental awareness lets us, in regards to the training scale, allows us to have quality work done in those three areas. So at this level, we have what we now call working paces. We have a working trot and a working canter. And in the walk, we have free walk and medium walk. But the working paces are really the paces that we use to start to develop the horse, okay? And what a working trot looks like, and we're going to put one of those videos up in a minute. But the working trot and the working canter look like the horse is pushing himself from behind. His hocks should bend under his belly. The hind leg of the horse in the trot should track up with the front legs. And in the canter, the inside hind leg should step under the rider's foot, inside foot. I mean, those are kind of visuals to give you an idea of what the working trot looks like. All right, so he's active, he's in the controlled rhythm. When he's active in the way I just described in working paces, we're able to really start to develop the use of his back, the soft, swinging, supple back, which is really, that is where a huge amount of our focus needs to be on developing over time strength and suppleness through the horse's back and top line. This is very, 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 very important at this level. The correct use of the back and the correct development of the connection, all right, that is like at the crux of being able to improve a horse's paces and gaits. And when you look at training level, even if you just have an average horse, he can be made better through correct riding and correct training. When you look at a Grand Prix horse at the highest levels, if the connection is correct and the horse is using his whole body, he becomes more and more beautiful, even an average horse. Okay, so let's, a little bit about balance.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
I think it's important for everybody. Could you explain a little bit what all the people that is watching this, what they should look at to decide if the horse is using or not using his back? Because I think that's very important, and
Yes.
people not always realize that. And I think that's one of the most important things in all levels, but it's basic and it's very important for training on first level.
Yeah, that's a super question. Thank you. So at these lower levels, if you're watching a horse and you're trying to decide if he's really using his back, all right, there's things that you would be able to see. First of all, on the majority of horses, you should be able to notice that his lumbar muscles behind the saddle are moving. They're just gently swinging. We talk about the swinging back. You can see that on most horses. Another important thing that you'll see is that the strides of the horse in both trot and canter, they won't be flat and earthbound. But when the horse uses his back, he starts to get a little bit of expression in his strides. He starts to get a little bit of suspension. And I don't mean passage, but he's not flat, he's not earthbound. He becomes more light-footed as compared to a horse that's really stiff in his back. Often they're like, you can really hear the feet hit the ground. Those are really the two big ones. I mean, the quality of the trot and the quality of the canter when the horse uses his back changes radically. And the effect that it has on the overall balance of the horse changes dramatically. When the horse is relaxed and using his back, he's not pounding the ground with his front legs as he would when he's stiff and he's earthbound.
Thank you very much. I think that's very important.
Does that answer it enough?
Yes, I think it's
all right. Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you for adding that. So then, I mean, really that leads us right into what I wanted to just talk a little bit about next, which was balance. All right. Every horse should be in balance, regardless of their level. Okay. Of course, the balance that they're capable of at each level varies. So I like to think, first of all, that with our rider, we know that the rider sits over the horse's center of gravity. Okay. That kind of determines how we sit. We're in our vertical balance, ear, shoulder, elbows, hip, heel. all right? But we're placing our weight over the horse's center of gravity to optimize the horse's ability to carry us on his back. And even at basic levels, pre-training level, well, let's say training level onward, we would like to have the horse be in enough of a balance that the horse maintains his center of gravity underneath us. But what often happens? What the natural thing that happens with all horses when they start to be trained is what? They want to be on the forehand. All right. They use their necks to balance themselves because that's what horses do. So when they use their neck to balance themselves, they either stretch it way out, which takes their center of gravity too far forward ahead of us. So the horse is out of balance, or they use their underneck to balance themselves, which often looks like the horse is way above the bit, but they're all trying to find a balance. Okay, so generally, we just want to think that where we sit in the saddle, we want to keep the horse's center underneath us. Okay, and in training level, we talk about a level balance, all right, where the point of the hip and the ears are almost in the same plane. All right, and this gives this outline, keeping the horse under our seat, so to speak, gives the horse the opportunity to get some strength, to start to get the idea that he can relax those muscles and start to stretch into the bit. Because remember, in training, what do we have to do? We have to teach the horse to lengthen his muscles, to stretch them out before later on he can ultimately start to, contract them in the form of collection, carrying power. So that's a training level. So as we move on and the horse becomes a little stronger and a little more supple and a little better balanced, we begin to add more of the difficult exercises, which we'll talk a little bit about in a sec. And then the horse becomes more able to keep himself a little more on his hind legs, and he starts to be able to bring his thoracic sling in his shoulders, and his abdominals start to be able to work so that he can carry his shoulders and his withers a little more uphill, a little more up. All right. And this gives us the impression that the horse, when you look at him, all right, he will be more in an uphill balance. And I don't mean by that the pole high. All right. We're looking at the back up and the withers and the shoulders up. Okay. That's the important thing. All right. At first level, he begins to carry himself more through his back and through his hindquarters. That allows that to happen.
Okay, Sarah, just give me a second. I have a question from one of our Canadians.
Okay, good.
Sally, would you please address the importance of the walk in the early stages of training, and what do you recommend for riding or working from the ground, the walk, without interfering with the walk or perhaps ruining the walk?
Yeah, it's a great,
Good
really
question.
good question, because we know the walk is the easiest and the fastest gait to ruin by trying to do too much. So that's a super question. And we want to preserve the walk. So in the very beginning, when the horse is untrained, when he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing, he doesn't know about contact, I put the focus on the rider's seat and position so that in a certain way, the rider's connection to the horse is that begins the whole idea of the contact and the connection. But then you really just want to ride the horse energetically forward, not fast, but he needs to march. He needs to cover ground. He has to walk a little bit like he's on a mission, and that it has purpose. That's step number one. Okay, as the horse becomes a little more educated and he starts to understand contact, you can ride him on a light contact, but you must preserve the rhythm and the forwardness and keeping the horse in front of the leg and in front of the seat. Horses that are very stiff, maybe horses that are very stiff in their backs, or have other issues, or have psychological issues that are nervous and very tense kind of horses. Maybe with these horses, because of all those issues, there would be a tendency that the tension would cause a break in the rhythm. It might become lateral, might become irregular. And of course, we don't want that. So I would not ride on too much contact. You have to feel how much is possible that you can at least communicate, and lots of figures. Nice, active, free walk, lots of figures, all right, versus going straight. And oftentimes that can, over time, teach the horse to relax enough that you can begin to eventually get a little more and more contact. I have actually a Lusitano, beautiful Lusitano horse in my barn now in training that we've had him 2 years, and we knew when we got him the walk was not good. It was like a week 6 walk. And it was because he just was so stiff in his back. And over time now, like especially the last 6 months, I have finally been able to establish a really good medium walk. But I didn't push it. I waited. We really had to teach him to walk forward and to march and to do a nice free walk where he could swing in his back. And we worked in the trot and canter to really get him strong in his back and over his back and up. And now, thankfully, we're able to put it in place with being able to develop a good medium walk. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it's a very good,
Yeah, it's a
very
super
good
question.
answer. And I believe one very important thing is if you look at the US tests and most of the countries in Europe as well, collected walk is only introduced like after third or fourth level, So there is no need to start interfering with trying to do collected walk and bothering the horse in the mouth and in the neck and in the jaw at the walk, and perhaps ruining the walk at that early stage. So minimum
Yes,
medium walk
absolutely.
for training and first level, stay away from collection or trying to think about collection.
Yes. And you have another situation too with some of these big horses with these huge gaits, horses that have a huge walk. Even in a training level, when you start to establish a connection, that can be very challenging for them. So, I mean, you need to really let the horse tell you what's possible in terms of how much or how little contact. It's really the bottom line. The last thing I would say about the walk, and I don't know about all these other countries, but I know here in America that riders, when they're riding, they'll work in the trot and they'll work in the canter and they'll blah, 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 and they'll do stuff. And the minute they take a break, free walk long reins, it's like coffee break. The horse just about goes so slow, goes nowhere. The riders are dying. The horse looks like he could lie down and go to sleep. And I always tell riders, every moment you're on the horse, doesn't matter if it's a break or what, you need to walk with purpose because you're either training it or untraining it. So, okay, so moving on, I know, oh, you okay, Cesar?
Yes, I'm okay. Don't worry. We're trying to set up an alarm in my house.
Oh.
So that was the problem. It's not that I lost the electricity.
Okay, all right. I want to, actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's look at the first video, Cesar.
Very good.
Okay. So we have 2 videos, and they are of a test. They're 2 very good horses. We're not looking at it from judges' eyes. We're looking at it from the perspective of just watching the gaits and the paces. This is a horse. He was at our national dressage championships last November, and he was the training level champion. I wish we had a side view, but anyway, this is training level. And you can see even, it's a little bit wiggly, but you can get a hint of the quality of the trot even looking at it from behind. It's got elasticity. It's got some spring and bounce to it. So if we think of what we were just talking about, it's clear rhythm. Yeah, it's purposeful. The horse is clearly pushing himself over the ground with his hind legs. He's got freedom through the shoulders. He's clearly in a much more than a level balance. Yeah, the speed is just, it's a little bit faster than normal, but that's okay. That's, you know, you still get an idea. Look behind the saddle. You can see the swinging back and you see the swinging tail. The tail is often a very good barometer for what's happening in the back and the top line. You look at his ears, you look at his expression. If you look right there in that contact and connection he had, that is like textbook perfect, where the horse is accepting the bit.
And I love the transition. That was a really nice transition.
He was supple in the pull and jump, but the nose was in front of the vertical. Okay. Now you look at the canter, 3 clear beats, jump, look at the air time. All right,
Off
this
the
is
ground.
training. Yes, that's another good visual, that the horse is really using his whole body, that he's supple. Yeah. Okay, and the walk, 4 clear beats. Okay, you look for the V in the legs. Okay, you can see this horse has a huge overstride. This rider is very tall. This horse isn't that little. All right, it's just the rider's huge. Very tall upper body.
We would look better on that one.
Oh yeah, I know. He'd be perfect for us. But look at its purpose. Look at the horse's expression. Look at his ears. All right, he's marching. He's forward, but it's not hurried. His whole body is moving. Gets a little tight in the neck there, but the transition itself was good. I mean, sometimes at this level they get a little bit short just because they're not strong enough to sustain the balance and to carry themselves through their backs for great periods of time. But you look at the whole picture. The mouth is quiet. I mean, there's just so much to like about this. Okay, maybe not quite as balanced as the first one. The first one was a 9 at least. All right, fell in a little bit, but I mean, that's typical for this level. But again, the quality in the canter has 3 clear beats. Jump, look at that. You see the moment of suspension. It's very nicely balanced under the rider's seat. In his transitions, there's really no muss or fuss with him. The horse is well controlled, well balanced. What I like about this is the horse is eager to go forward, but in a really nice, relaxed, confident way. And the stretchy circle there, think about that. The stretchy circle really tests the horse's correct rhythm, suppleness, and contact. And what do we want? We want the trot to stay exactly the same. We want the horse to reach forward and out, forward and down with his neck, with the nose in front of the vertical. I would take this horse home in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a high quality horse for sure, but that gives you it gives you a good picture in your mind of what you want to strive for. And it doesn't mean you have to have, a top fancy horse. You can have whatever horse you have with correct riding. All right, you can develop your horse to be the best that he can be.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
Bill is asking, is this the frame that judges are looking for in training 3?
You mean the outline of the horse?
Yes.
This is more. This is a higher level of engagement and balance, which brings about that horse's carriage. The horse is not penalized for it. Okay, the rider was really letting the horse go forward and out to the bit. So whether we're looking for that, it's a little more than what the expectation is, okay? But not in a negative way, all right? When you see something of that quality, right, where he was active, he was forward, he was balanced, he was rhythmic, he was really The mouth was quiet. He was really almost always reaching forward to the contact. There has to be high marks. So.
Good question. Good question and good answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to see the other video now, or?
We could do that now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And this other one is a first level horse. This is out in Oregon. So she's doing first level 3. Okay, so we have a length. Yeah. You have a lengthening coming up. All right. And you see already there's cadence, there's gorgeous uphill balance, there's ground cover.
I think it's very important to notice there that medium is not required. It's just lengthening.
Yes.
So that was very nicely performed.
And she had that quality that was bordering on medium because the horse is so supple in its back. Look at its back moving. Look at the tail. Those are, again, like we said, those are all indications that the horse is really using his whole body and his top line. I have another volte. No, Legio, sorry. Got ahead of myself.
This was even better than the other one.
Yeah. I mean, just forward, has reach, has gorgeous balance. Yeah, this is a stretchy circle here. This is maybe not its best movement.
Yeah, not as consistent as
Yeah.
we would like, but still good.
Yeah, because the trot quality is so good. Yeah, but we would have liked to see much more reach forward and out.
Yes.
I mean, when I look at the walk, when I ride a walk, you want the feeling that the whole horse's body is moving. This is quite good. Even from the angle that we're seeing it at, which is difficult to tell, the ground cover, the reach forward, the freedom through the shoulders, all really, really good. Now we get a little, very secure medium walk in terms of the contact. For first level, that was an amazingly good transition. The balance. Okay, here we have the shallow loop.
Yeah, they changed it actually, and it's a good way that they changed it.
Yeah.
It's like now you actually do lengthening after the loop instead of careening down alongside, having no control, and then trying to do the loop.
Cesar, is that from the video, the voice?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But it's a very good comment.
Yes.
And I do agree with her. I mean, this is a super canter. Clear beats, uphill.
Yeah, it's very good quality.
Super, yeah.
But she doesn't care about gunshots. I mean, a bird makes a noise in my arena, she freaks out. But
That was nice.
Yeah, I mean, that was textbook. That could have been a 10. I mean, forward, clear trot steps, fluid transition down and then back up. So if we look a little bit at this rider, you don't see her aids. You see her sitting in really good alignment, ear, shoulder, hip, heel, right? Hands quiet, legs quiet, invisible aids, everything we want to see, okay? So that her communication with the horse, all right, can be the best that it can. All right, position is so important to be able to effectively communicate. When we judge, I don't know about you, Cesar, when we see a good horse and rider, you always think to yourself, well, I'd let that one ride my horse.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
I would take that home.
Yeah, that's kind of the telltale thing if you really appreciate how that rider is riding and influencing the horse.
Just like it's time to stop. I know this, even though I only done 3 tests.
Look at the holes.
Yeah, I mean that was both of them are an example of just correct, harmonious riding.
Yeah, that was really good. Thanks for those videos because I think they explain quite well what we want to see in training and first level.
Yeah. I have just a few more things I wanted to touch on, and then maybe we could do a few of those questions. What do you think?
Yes, yes.
Or questions from people, if there are additional.
Whatever. We don't have more questions from people, but everybody's welcome to send questions. Otherwise, I have some questions as well. Okay?
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the rider's tools. How are we, what do we have at our disposal that we can control that's going to help us develop our horse to be the best athlete? The first one is the first and the most important thing that the rider has control over, as we just saw in this last rider, is our position. We are responsible to sit in balance, in suppleness, and to follow the rhythm of the horse in all paces and in transitions and whatever. And everybody, young or old, is capable with the right information and tools that they can develop that way of riding. You don't need to go to the Olympics, you just need to be correct. We've all heard that saying, a crooked rider can't straighten a horse.
That's true.
So you have to think about it, think about from the horse's perspective.
I have a question here.
Okay.
Sometimes when I take my horse to different places, he starts going fast and quick and starts kind of running. What can I do to improve the rhythm and the tempo with this horse?
Okay. Well, if it's a horse that's say inexperienced, number one is get him out a lot. All right, because chances are the quickness comes from nervousness on the part of the horse. Second suggestion would be, if it's at all possible, to do some quiet lunging before you rode him with side reins for maybe 10 minutes and just give him a chance to loosen his back and to loosen his body and mentally calm down. If it's a horse show, with horses like that, we always make a point of getting on them as many times as possible before you actually do the test down center line. And what I mean by that is just getting on and walking, strolling, just getting on and letting them just very quietly, calmly see the sights and get over their nervousness and their fear. That does wonders. If you're going someplace, say you're shipping in for a clinic and your horse gets really nervous, I would see if you can lunge there, right? Or give yourself extra time in the walk until the horse calms down and he starts to relax and let his back go on the walk. Then you can have chances are a much better success at having him relaxed and rhythmic and not quick in the rest of the ride. If that doesn't work, transitions and transitions and transitions. All right, using the transitions to get him listening to your seat, listening to your half halt, so you have that tool to rebalance him. And when the horse is listening to your seat, then you can get him out of the fast, quick tempo and rhythm. All right, and you can establish the rhythm where the horse follows the rider's rhythm rather than the rider ends up just following the horse's rhythm. So those are just a few strategies.
And I have another question from one of the participants. Sally is asking, during warm-up, some horses canter will greatly improve its trot work. Others are better off doing more trot work before cantering. Could you please comment on this?
Well, I agree with her.
Yeah.
I mean, she's spot on correct. And particularly older horses are much better cantering before they trot. So you really have to know your horse. What's his strong gait? What's his strongest gait? And then use that to your advantage. There seems to be, I mean, all of us, we seem to have this misconception that, okay, when we ride, we have to walk first, and we have to trot first, and we have to canter first. And we don't.
No,
And
whatever suits your horse.
whatever works, I think is really the name of the game. Any other questions right now?
Yeah, I have a lovely warm blood with lots of suspension and expression. Judges often comment that he needs more impulsion, and I get a little confused about that. What would you say?
Oh, yes. We've seen many of those kinds of horses, these big, gorgeous, big moving horses. And some of these big moving horses, they have the kind of movement where the shoulders, have huge freedom. So the front end's going out this way, but the hind leg can very, very often, and I'm suspecting with that question that this is the case, that the horse has natural, quote, elasticity and loft, but the hind legs and the hocks are bending out behind the horse's body. So it's the front ends are out, the front legs are really freely forward, but the hind legs are trailing. All right, and so with fancy big movers, which we all want, and there's nothing wrong with them, you just need to make sure that you ride an equal percentage of impulsion to balance out the elasticity and the natural suspension that horse has. Otherwise, you end up developing kind of a false impression, which can lead later on to this passage type trot where the horse is like goes up and down, but he doesn't go anywhere, he doesn't cover ground. And that's probably could be the case with this particular example too. So.
Good, thank you. And I have another one. My horse likes to lean and balance on my hands. I am struggling with transitions because of this. How can I get him lighter?
Okay, oh, good question. So the rider's hands are the fifth leg.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and this could be caused by conformation. Some horses are higher behind than they are in front, which predisposes them to be on the forehand. It could be any number of reasons, and you have to explore those, but just assuming everything is totally fine with the horse and the rider, things to examine are number one, that the rider is sitting correctly with a deep connected seat and not perpetuating the horse's desire to be on the forehand, which can happen when riders stiffen their shoulders and draw them up and use their arms to control the horse rather than their lower back and their seat. So that's number one thing to check. And then number two, to teach the horse how to accept a half halt.
May I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
But last time, in our last dressage talk, we had Sandy.
Yeah, my good friend Sandy.
Yes. And one of the questions were, how am I supposed to salute? And then I asked her to show it in front of the camera, like quite clearly. And I actually got a phone call from very far away saying that was wonderful. Nobody had ever told us, how do you judges want to see a salute? And now that I'm watching you getting stiff with your...
Would you like this?
Could you move back a little bit and show that? Yeah. Because I thought that was very clear, and I think it's very important.
Well, and you have to think of us humans. A huge number of people, they work, they have a life, they have a family, they have other things. You go to the barn, you ride 1 or 2 horses a day. I mean, the rest of the time you're dealing with life. So where do people carry their attention? In their shoulders. All right. And you see all different versions of this, drawing the shoulders up, all right, which lifts your shoulder blades up, which disconnects your seat from the saddle. And then you end up secondarily, using your arms. Can you see me? Do I have to stand up?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. And then you stiffen your upper arm and your lower arm and lock your wrists. And the horse says, oh, this feels awful. And what do? They hang right back. So the solution is simply the rider has to practice dropping his shoulder blades down into those little imaginary pockets that you have there and keeping them down, all right, that connects the seat. And then to think that you're not using your arm muscles to control the horse, all right? Many people, they do that if they're really stiff in their shoulders, or their version of the half halt is like making their arms and their shoulders rigid and their hands, all right, which of course the horse even gets heavier when you do that. So it's improving the posture in your shoulders and then redirecting the muscular effort out of your arms into your core muscles and your lower back. So, all right, so that being said, then to get this horse off the forehand, all right, I would do a combination of, as I started to say, I would teach him how to respond to a half halt. All right, use your basic generic half halt that you can activate, close the leg, deepen your seat and low back, all right, momentary non-allowing rein aid, and then softening on the rider's part. And to the horse, that means, oh, listen, come back, slow down. Something in along those lines where the horse gets the idea that he's got to react and respond. That's number one thing I would work on. Number two, with this kind of horse, I would do leg yields. All right, I would do leg yields and they don't have to be long, steep ones. They can be 2, 3, 4 steps at a time. But every time the horse starts leaning, and particularly if he leans more one way than the other, which they often do, lean on the stiff side, just ask him to move away from that inside leg into the outside rein for 2 or 3 steps. And that is magical to help redirect the horse's balance. I do a lot of leg yield in combination with transitions too, like leg yield walk, for example, for the same thing, just creating combinations to show the horse where to balance. So using the exercises and really double checking your position should be able to help you start to make headway with that.
That's great. I have one last question.
Okay.
It says, my first level horse is very difficult to sit on, and I don't want to be a first level rider forever. How can I improve this?
Okay. We used to see in this country, it was the jump from training to first level, because at first level in the old test, you had to sit the trot. And I'm not trying to be demeaning or anything. We changed it so that at first level, now rising trot was fine to help people be able to make the move up. All right, if you have to go back and you have to think, okay, why is it so hard to sit the trot? Chances are it's not totally the rider. All right, there's a chance that it is 50% the horse and maybe at least 50% the rider. So let's look at the horse. All right, if you can't sit on the horse's back, there's a reason. His back is stiff. All right, when the horse, as we saw in the videos and as we were talking about, when the horse is relaxed and soft and swinging in his back, he gives you a place to sit. All right, he allows you to sit. So that's the first thing. You have to develop, go back, do homework, think about where is a weak link, what does my horse need to improve on so that he can start to get more supple in his back. All right, and together with that is going to be making sure he's in a good enough balance to allow the rider to sit. Second piece is to look at the rider. I mean, what is it you're doing? Are you the scenario with the shoulders drawn up and you're a little bit water skiing on the horse, like everything is sort of backwards against the horse? If you're like that, you're not going to be able to sit and follow. So you check your position, check your balance, and then the rider has to make sure that they stay soft in their hips and supple in their lower back so you can follow the rhythm of the horse. Things that allow a rider to sit correctly are keeping his center of gravity down low in his seat and then really learning to follow the motion of the horse with our hips and our lower back. And I do an exercise for horses and riders that are kind of in this scenario where you do like 3 strides rising, 3 strides sitting, rising, sitting, rising, sitting. And the rider has to really feel the rhythm because they have to stay in sync. Otherwise, they end up on the wrong diagonal. It gives the horse a chance to accept the rider's seat and learn that he doesn't need to be defensive in his back. So he starts to relax. They both start to get more of the rhythm and more of the feel. And it's a really great way to develop the seat and the feel that you want in the horse's back. So
I think all of the things that you're saying are so important, and they apply not only to first to training at first level. They apply to every level. I have another question from one of the participants.
okay.
Does the height of the rider and the height of the horse make it harder or easier to sit?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I've ridden really tall horses that have super supple backs that are easy peasy to sit to. And I've ridden little horses that don't have such supple backs and they're not so easy to sit to. And I'm only 5'3". All right, I'm not tall. So I wouldn't say that the size of the horse makes a difference. If we look at the rider, a tall rider can often have a little bit of a challenge when they're learning to manage their height and their length in their upper body in a way where they can stay connected in their waist and to keep their body with enough positive tension without being stiff. Sometimes with very tall riders that have tall upper bodies, their center of gravity can be a little high naturally in their body, and that's going to make it hard for them to follow. So I guess what I'm saying is thinking about how the rider's conformation is. If you have a tall rider with a short waisted, so he naturally has a low center of gravity, and he has long legs, he's got it all. That's like perfect.
Yes.
So it's really not how you're built or what you have, it's how you learn to ride with it in an effective way. I mean, look at Debbie McDonald. She's like 5'1". She's a mini. She's petite.
Actually, Michelle, the one that asked the question, has clarified. I'm 5 foot.
Okay. All right. We're in the same category then.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
No, I don't have any more questions so far. I have enjoyed this conversation a lot.
It was fun.
Actually, there were several things that we could have continued talking for a long time because some of them were very, very interesting. Thank you, Sarah, a lot for this amazing conversation with us.
Thank you, Cesar, for putting this all together. This is really super. And thank you, everybody, for joining. What a treat to have people from all around the world. Wow.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm going to turn the microphones on now. So if you want to say something, especially to Sarah, to thank her. Thank you very, very much, Sarah, and thank you very much,
Cesar.
everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you all. All right, super, super fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, wow, super.
I really appreciate.
It worked really well, Sarah. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your comments about the frame in training. I kind of skipped through training a little bit because my horse was hurt and I started riding a horse that was more trained, who was really tall, really big. I was kind of in the middle splits. That was my question about the sitting trot. But we went on, and then when I went to training, I guess I was thinking about training 20 years ago.
Oh, we've evolved.
So, and I qualified for regionals, but I need to get, stuff up. So this was extremely helpful.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Where do you live?
Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
I am. I work for the news, so I'm on lock.
Okay, good, good. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll see you Monday for our next dressage talk with Laura Graves. I've been talking to her. We don't know if it's going, I mean, it depends of how it goes with the hurricane in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see, but I'll keep you posted, okay?
I want to be on that one.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It was a pleasure seeing you
Bye,
and listening
Cesar.
to you.
No. Bye, Eric.
Bye. Take care.
Good to see
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
Thank you so-
Florida.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Bye, Cesar. Thank you so much.
Ciao, Eric.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.